I'm focused on this spirit cause it keeps me from this fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, hello. This is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about some things that Kamala Harris said on her interview circuit that we didn't get to yesterday. But she had went on The View, and she was asked by Sunny, should have been like a layup question, really. Like, how are you, is there anything you do differently? And she said nothing comes to mind. And she was also asked that on Colbert Show, which still a non-answer, but I guess better than the one she gave on The View. And it's just really remarkable that she doesn't have a good answer to this, especially because she's going around the country acknowledging that people are not happy about the economy. She keeps saying that the American dream is more elusive today than it has been in the past. And she's basically an incumbent, but has to run away from the current administration that she's a part of. And yet she's saying that there's nothing that comes to mind. So I think people appreciate humility, in that if you would just acknowledge that there's some things with hindsight that you would do better, that you would do differently. What's the point of not at least mentioning that, just to pretend like you can't act like everything you did was perfect and you did nothing wrong, yet acknowledge that everything is kind of bad and we need to do better. So she's really screwing up there, which is interesting. Also, Tim Walz is going around saying that we need to get rid of the electoral college and just really messing up cultural norms. They always talk about how terrible Trump is and how he's going to ruin cultural norms, and they want to do things that are going to significantly change the country and alter it in a way that I don't know is frankly fixable. Also, CBS, the fallout, we talked yesterday about their interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates and how they had like a struggle session. There's still more drama that's come out from that, but also 60 Minutes did an interview with Kamala Harris and they changed her answers. And it's it's really insane what's going on with the news networks. I guess I never just kind of paid too much mind about CBS and about how bad they were. We always rag on like, well, we know MSNBC is biased. We know that CNN is bad, but CBS is just like, next level right now with some of their stuff going on right now. So I mean, ABC obviously bad, at times, but it's just a hot mess. It's a hot mess. It's the world we're living in. But before we jump into everything, first of all, I want to say shout out to people live and watching and folks in the comments. Thank you very much on the compliment. April said I look gorgeous today. Thank you very much. I was in my closet. I'm like, what shirt should I wear? I'm like, I really like this one. So thank you so much for the compliment. So if you're watching live, thank you. On Facebook, YouTube, also on Twitch as well. To those of you who watched it back later, when you get off at work, when you're cooking dinner and so on, thank you guys very much. I appreciate you, every view. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out some content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream and run my site and all that good stuff. So you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. And I, want to put the ask out there. There are like different things that I need fixed and changed and so on. So, if you guys can go the extra mile, I appreciate it. I really, really do. You guys can give stars on Facebook. You guys can also do super chats on YouTube, but the best way to directly help is to go to the website and support. You can also get different merch like the black tea mug. You also got different t-shirts on the site as well. If you haven't seen the pumpkin spice mug, let me show you guys that mug. I don't have a physical copy here, but I know people who've bought it. So it's got a little Trump, a chibi Trump saying it's pumpkin season. So it is pumpkin season. People love their pumpkin spice lattes and so on. So you guys can get that stuff and different merch, different t-shirts and stuff that's available on the website. I know someone had commented on a video yesterday, I think it was yesterday, and said they're from the UK and wanted some merch. The merch is it should send it to the UK as well, and like outside of the US. I don't know how extra long it'll take to get there, but it should say on the website the shipping. But you guys can order outside of the US. I think it's UK, Canada. Is it UK? I'm pretty sure it's UK. I'll have to double check now that I think about it, but it should say on the site where it should be able to go. But I'll double check after I get off to make sure if it's available that those settings are active. Also, I want to remind you guys that November the 3rd in Ann Arbor, I will have an author signing 10 to 12 for book for it's like K-Fest in Ann Arbor. And that weekend of the election is Motor City Comic Con. So it'll be that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You'll be in Artist Alley, so I hope to see you guys there. And if there's any other in-person events that I'll be doing before the end of the year, I will certainly let you guys know of anything cool that's coming up. So let's hop to it. Kamala Harris is absolutely awful at running, talking, speaking, running the country. She's just really bad at this. And she should have anticipated a question that was really simple, really, really simple, that people would obviously ask and have been asking of her for some time. Okay. And you know, before I show you that, let me show you this Jamaican accent thing she's got going on because people are talking about this. She got a new accent, but you know, at least her family's actually Jamaican. So
have empathy, man. Yes. For the suffering of other people. Have sense of purpose. Have empathy, man.
I saw Tom Cotton. He had retweeted this and said, "We need to shut the Kamala Harris campaign down until we can figure out what the heck is going on here." And I'm going to take this clip here and I'm going to just show I'm just going to put it on repeat, like, have empathy, man, and just show different abortion procedures. And I don't know how long TikTok will allow me to have that up, but I'm going to go ahead and risk it. Have empathy? Nope, you sure don't. Which, by the way, apparently the New York Post is reporting that Amber Thurman's stepfather wants Kamala Harris to stop overusing her death for politics, and says it's like a funeral happening over and over, which I can imagine. Well, I guess I can, not the circumstance of how she died, but I recently lost my mom and had to deal with people trying to play politics with different stuff after that happened. Not with my mother's death specifically, but just some stuff we had to deal with, which I talked about before. So them continuously mentioning Amber Thurman, even though the pro-life laws did not cause her death, and her family is trying to get retribution and are going to sue like hospitals for malpractice, and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are out here saying, hey, she died because of the laws, and you dummies, If she died because of the laws, then how is her family going to be able to properly sue the hospitals if it's not their fault and they were following the laws? So they're wrong and they're lying, and they ought to know they're lying by now. But are they also trying to mess up her family's like financial compensation after this tragedy? Because she did die after a complication um that came after taking the abortion pill. So she wouldn't have took the abortion pill, she'd still be alive today. Um Assuming because sepsis is something that can happen after you take the pill. But the hospital should have acted. So there is still malpractice there. So them going around saying that it was the pro-life laws, if their hands were tied because of the law, then it's obviously not quite the hospital's fault. So they are just craptastic all the way around. All the way around. So it's really messed up that they keep doing this. And I'm glad that Fox called out Tim Walz to his face when he tried to push it. But I know Kamala Harris is still mentioning it. And after that Fox News appearance, Tim Walz cut a video and posted it on social media. So hopefully I just hope this backfires on them so largely, because again, her death was obviously preventable. If she wouldn't have had the abortion on her two twins, then she would be alive still. But even still, after taking the pill and getting sepsis, which that is something that can happen after you take it, there's still medical malpractice there. So these guys are just sick, and they will do absolutely anything. They'll do absolutely anything to try and win an election, even lie through their teeth about things that are totally irrelevant, just to try to make Republicans look bad if they can make them look bad. So I want to play this clip from The View with Kamala Harris. She was on Howard Stern's show too. And just one bad interview after another. Here we go. Here's the clip. But this is the segment. This is the short question. Sunny asked it. This clip is only like 17 seconds. And this is going to be in so many ads. This is going to be like the closing argument for the Trump campaign. And Axios already reported that they're like salivating. They're like, ooh, ads. We're about to make so many ads. And people should make ads. Absolutely. About this particular thing that she says on The View.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Well, if anything.
Okay, that's it. That's all. There's nothing that comes to mind. So you're going around saying, oh, the American dream, it's hard to achieve it today. You're the vice president. A home ownership this, home ownership that. It's so hard. Groceries are still too high. Drugs are still too high. Insurance, all the stuff is still too high. The cost of living is too high. People are filling it in their pockets every day. You're the vice president. And I know they don't want to talk about Afghanistan. You have nothing comes to mind about what you would have done differently, knowing that we had 13 troops who were killed. You at least wouldn't have like not droned the aid worker and those kids afterwards. Like you wouldn't have like at least had some accountability somewhere. There's nothing that you would have done. Would you have like tried to be more strict on Iran? Would you have tried to be more supportive of it? Of course, they wouldn't try to be more supportive of Israel, or at least not undermine them and say dumb stuff on TV. Would you have done more about the border? And not did all of the stuff that Trump did basically on day one with the halting of the deportations, getting rid of Remain in Mexico. I kept saying that this is what they should have done. because they just did this with insulin. They like took away the stuff that Trump did to make it cheaper, and then they redid it themselves and pretended like it was always them the whole time. I would have just now I wouldn't have done this because I'm a moral person and I'm a common sense person, so I would have just kept remain in Mexico. But let's say I'm evil and my name is Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. I would have just reinstituted remain in Mexico, called it something different, and pretended like it was better than what Trump did. I would have just pretended, 'cause in the media, just they love to just play along. So I would have just pretended like I was the stuff the whole time. And then the Republicans would have went on TV and whined about it, and the media would have tried to ignore them or push back or whatever because they're in my pocket, and I would have just literally just redid what Trump did. That's what I would have did. But all of these blunders in the past 4 years, people are obviously upset about the state of the country. This is a change election. Like, people want a change. And unfortunately for her, she is still the vice president. So to say nothing comes to mind, she couldn't even say like, well, um, there's a lot of things that we know now in hindsight, and we would have did X, Y, and Z, a bit differently. But I'm gonna make sure that we, fix some things, and that's, we're gonna reassess and and you can trust me. You can trust me that I will get these things done on day one when I'm in charge and at the helm. Like, she has to break from Biden because she's doing this thing. Oh, like, oh, he's totally there. He's totally with it. He's been totally with it. Oh yeah. He doesn't have any cognitive decline, even though we all saw it, and that's why he's no longer the nominee, right? So she has to pretend. She doesn't have to pretend, but this is a choice that they made, that Biden is all fine and they're all copacetic, and him and Jill will go and campaign on their behalf and unity and all this stuff. When they just kind of need to break. And what's funny about Biden saying, "Oh, we've all been hand in hand. She's been a part of it. We're singing from the same song sheet," is what he said. Um, is that they've been at odds, and their staff has been separate, and that she's had high turnover, and she's been like kept in a corner. There's been articles about like people not utilizing Kamala, or her needing multiple revamps, and they like trot her out for like 2-3 things. One of them was the border, unfortunately for her. That I'm like, they're and when that first happened, I'm like, they're setting her up, man. They're setting her up to fail because they don't know what else to do with her, and it doesn't seem like they like her very much. Okay. So they're trying to tie her to everything, and of course there's some things that she can't like get away from. There is a recording of her saying that she was the last person in the room with the Afghanistan pull out, so she can't really disassociate too much with that, and she can't disassociate from the Inflation Reduction Act because she was a tie-breaking vote, and there was a America Rescue Plan. I think the tie-breaking vote for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's at least 2 things. I think, but so she can't really break away from certain things, but they have not been like eye to eye or aligned the entire time. Like, she's been like probably the ugly redheaded stepchild of the administration. Rumor has it she's pretty difficult. So it's just funny that he's like, no, we're on the Titanic together. And I'm making sure that I'm not letting you get on this door, this floating door. There's no room for you, Kamala. Like, you're gonna freeze to death by the time this is all over. Like, I've told you guys my theory that I think he actually wants her to lose after they pushed him out. Because there's like 2 times he's like interrupted her. Like, he went on TV the same time she was on The View. He went on TV the same time she was like in Michigan, and he keeps anchoring her to him. So he can't come out and say like, "Oh, go vote for Trump." He can't do that, but I think he's doing things to undermine. Now there's some people like Jack Posobiec who are reporting that Jill's people and Kamala's people are like getting into fist fights over this stuff. I don't know how true that stuff is. I don't know. I don't know if that stuff is true. He's had some good like tea that have turned out to be true in the past, and I don't know if he's correct on this, but it does seem pretty obvious to me that he's playing games, and he's petty to the bone. He's petty to the bone. But she was also asked same question on Colbert show, which she's going out and doing interviews, but they're in places where folks are pretty much going to vote for her. I believe like Colbert, like who a lot of people don't even watch late night like that. There was the Call Me Daddy podcast she went on. Yep, white women are going to vote for her, sure. White women who love abortion, sure. But she has a huge problem with men, working class men, blue collar men. You know, she has a huge problem there. So they're not doing a great job reaching out over on that side. So let me pull up the Colbert interview, because she still didn't have anything good to say there either with the same question. And Frank Luntz, who I think he pretty much said that he thought Trump was going to lose, and he went on record after his debate performance. But I don't know. I think he still might be swaying toward Kamala is going to win, but this is not a good thing. We said in this clip, Stephen Colbert asked Kamala Harris what major changes her administration would bring about. She fails to provide a single proposal in her 65-second response.
Polling shows that a lot of people, especially independent voters, really want this to be a change election, and that they tend to break for you in terms of thinking about change. You are a member of the president's administration. Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms
Ooh.
but also I think it's important to say with 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump. And so when we think about the significance of what this next generation of leadership looks like, were I to be elected president, it is about, frankly, I love the American people, and I believe in our country. I love that it is our character and nature to be an ambitious people. We have aspirations, we have dreams, we have incredible work ethic, and I just believe that we can create and build upon the success we've achieved in a way that we continue to grow opportunity, and in that way grow the strength of our nation. So for example, my economic policies, I think of it, and I've named it as creating an opportunity economy. So it's about things like investing in small businesses. I love our small businesses.
Yeah, so that was a minute 30 seconds there. And didn't really talk about major changes that she would make there. And I know she talks about her opportunity economy and stuff that she has no idea how she's going to pass, according to other interviews, if she has a divided government. All she knows is that we just have to tax the very rich more. We just have to do it. And that's the best she has. Like, we just have to do it. Like, just magic. Which is silly, because she was a senator. She knows how this works. She knows there's a process, and sometimes you can't get people to cooperate with you because they don't like your freaking ideas. JD Vance was asked about what she said on The View. I'm going to go ahead and play his clip.
But she walks into The View, and you would think that would be an interview, and you know what they asked her? They gave her a softball, an easy question. Really propaganda. They said, can you name a single thing where you disagree with Joe Biden? Now, let's back up for a second, because remember, Kamala Harris's entire campaign is to pretend that she hasn't been the vice president for the last 3.5 years. You know, she stands up before crowds and she'll say, on day one, we're going to tackle the affordability crisis. On day one, we're going to secure the border. And you listen to her for 5 minutes and you think, Kamala, are you going to vote for Donald Trump? Because you've been vice president for 1,400 days. You haven't done anything. So you'd think after all this time of thinking about how she would do things differently from Joe Biden, she would have a well-prepared answer for the interviewers on The View. Well, they ask her one thing you would do differently from Joe Biden. You know what she says? I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. Now, in her defense, I'm not sure she could think of anything off the top of her head, whether about Joe Biden's policies or anything else. But think about this. For the last 2 months, Kamala Harris has been telling the American people that she's going to do things differently than Joe Biden, where she increased the cost of groceries by 25%. The average Michigan family is paying $1,000 more per month. That's $12,000 per year to afford today what they could have afforded when Donald Trump was president. The border is wide open thanks to our illustrious border czar, Kamala Harris, and her entire campaign has been to pretend that she doesn't bear any responsibility for the policies, even though she's the sitting vice president.
Yep. True that. I think he's correct about it. It's just hard for her to say anything or do anything off of the top of her head. She's just not very good on her feet like that. She was obviously very prepared when she had her debate with Donald Trump, and unfortunately Trump did not do a great job. He had moments where he like pushed back and had, like, they mentioned the tariffs and he's like, if the tariffs are bad, then why didn't you guys get rid of them? You know? So there are moments like that, but it kills me. It kills me just how awful both sides are. Like JD Vance, for example, is really killing it as far as like interviews and stuff. I don't think his energy like at rallies and different stuff are electrifying or anything, but his interviews are so good. His debate was mostly really good. You guys know I didn't like certain segments, but it was mostly so good. But you know, there are things that Trump has done to screw up. Like I saw some clips on the Flagrant podcast. And there's a lot of light stuff. They talked about, you know, Braveheart, and they talked about his heritage. They talked about there's a clip of him talking about Joe Biden and how he can just fall asleep in public, you know, and he just has these guys cracking up. It's a podcast of comedians, if you don't know what Flagrant is. And so my sister watched it because she heard me watching some clips. And so she's like, well, they did talk about abortion, for example. And so, you know, Trump went on a rant about how, you know, basically he wouldn't push like a pro-life agenda and that Christians don't vote. And I'm like, who the heck told him this? Who told him that? Now, if you go to like different events like Faith and Freedom, that what something. It was the thing we went to in DC this past what was that, July? And they will tell you their mission and other groups' missions are to get Christians to vote more, because there's a lot of Christians who do sit out in the elections. That is true. But so many people in the country are Christians and obviously go vote. So I don't understand disparaging them or discouraging them from voting for you and just making it seem like, oh, I can afford to throw them away because they don't vote anyway, so I'm going to just appeal to the middle or appeal to you guys who, you know, I'm not sure that those guys on the Flagrant podcast would still go out and vote for him anyway. So So this stuff like that drives me crazy. So it's not like he's running a flawless campaign. His campaign is very flawed, but it's remarkable how bad Kamala Harris's campaign is. Now they everything was pretty risky from jump because they're doing this very, very quick sprint to try to win. And the voters don't actually know her. Even though she's a vice president, there's a lot of people who don't know anything about the vice president. Doesn't matter. And she kept hiding 40 days without any kind of like interview. And now they're scrambling. They're making moves right now that if what they were doing was successful before, just going to rallies, we're speaking to the people. That's how they're hearing us. Like, we don't need to go on the news or something. That if that was successful, they wouldn't be going on these podcasts and other things. They know from internal polling, and it's not just probably their internal polling. There are people who are running for Senate and so on, like Alyssa Slotkin was sounding the alarm a few weeks ago. She's like, our internals do not look like they're troubling for Kamala Harris. And that's in Michigan. I'm in Michigan. And they're concerned about the swing states. And it's very, very close. Very, very close. And her likelihood of winning the national election right now, she's nationally like ahead like 3 points. That's just like barely safe for them. So they're flipping out on that. But there's polling in swing states that have them dead even or even Trump ahead by like 2-3 points. Or catching up in some places. But it's looking like he's gonna lock Georgia. It's, he's probably gonna take Arizona. Carrie Lake looks like she's dead there, but it looks like he's gonna do all right. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, I don't know what's gonna happen. It's interesting to me that it is so close because we apparently like to elect crazy women in our state because we've done that with Whitmer, Dana Nessel, and Jocelyn Benson. So it seems really nuts to me that the same group of people who voted for them again after these horrible women locked us down, that they just aren't feeling Kamala Harris. And that's very strange to me. But she's so detached from the real world and out of touch with things she's said in the past, legislation she's introduced, and she's toxic to men, working men, blue collar men, and you need like those kinds of votes to win in Macomb and other places like that. Suburban women might get you Oakland, but you still need like Macomb County and other places. And so she's just not doing well. Tim Walz is not the answer to make up that difference, and neither is her husband Doug, who apparently I said it this way, there's more corroboration that he hit women than there was that Christine Blasey Ford was assaulted by Brett Kavanaugh, but she believed Ford over Kavanaugh. So and you know what, she went on Howard Stern and he did not ask spicy questions about that news. And not surprised, didn't ask, spicy questions about her past and how she rose to power or anything like that. And I've never like sat down and watched a whole like Howard Stern. I think the only episode that I really kind of saw is he had an episode with the woman who played Lois on Smallville. And she obviously didn't want to talk about the things that he was asking about, but there was like a conversation about parties where like clothing would be optional. Years later, she said it was like totally blown out of proportion. I don't know, but like she was obviously uncomfortable. And then they were like triggered that she didn't really want to talk about it. And like they came on the show and she's all buttoned up, and also I'm just like I was really big fan of Smallville. I mean, had some hate relationship with it too. Didn't love it all the time, but I watched all 10 seasons, and that's mostly why I kind of wanted to watch the interview. And I heard about the kind of stuff that they talked about. But he always like goes off the wall, says really inappropriate things and so on. So I didn't expect him to go out there and like really hammer Kamala Harris or anything, because that's the person he's going to vote for. But they just had like no brain cell kind of questions with Howard Stern and Kamala Harris repeating things like, yep, Trump's going to be a dictator on day one. That's what he said. Day one dictate. Just nonsense lies that he's stupid and his audience is stupid, that they will just take that at face value and just be deranged. And he's asking her, will she be safe if she stays in the US, and will she think about leaving the country? And she's like, well, I'm doing everything I can to prevent Donald Trump winning. And I'm like, ma'am, he was already president. He was already president. You know what life was like when Trump was president. We all do. We lived through it. Howard Stern, you lived through it. All these celebrities said that they were going to leave the country. No one left the country because it's still a good place and worth defending and fighting for what you believe. But Trump was a pretty decent president, okay? You've all lived through this. So, just nonsense. Speaking of nonsense from voters, let me show you this before I go down to the CBS segment. So a University of Kansas professor doesn't want the dean to know. He said, we can line all these guys up and shoot them, in reference to men who won't vote for a woman president.
Guys are smarter than girls. You got some serious problems. That's what frustrates me. There are going to be some males in our society that will refuse to vote for a potential female president because they don't think females are smart enough to be president. We could line all those guys up and shoot them. They clearly don't understand the way the world works. Did I say that? Scratch that from the recording. I don't want the deans hearing that I said that. Guys are smart.
I wonder, is that even a joke? Because like, who would like tell the whole class that? Like, wouldn't you be like, mark that in your head and then like go back and try to edit it yourself? Not announce the whole class like, oh, I don't want the dean to hear that. What a wild thing to say. What a wild thing to say. Some Yuri Benimov's ghost had retweeted, said, communists, haha, why do you need the Second Amendment? Also communists, like, shoot their opponents. Yeah. What if people just don't want to vote for Kamala Harris because they don't like her? I'm not going to say there's not dudes out there who are saying, beating on their chest and saying like, women can't be leaders, shouldn't be leaders, or taking this a biblical stance and saying that woman leadership is a sign of a godless, failing society. Okay, so I've definitely heard stuff like that, but most people just don't like her. I don't feel like she's up to it, and that's because when she's asked a question, she goes into these monologues and word salads, and when she does have an idea, it's a pretty dumb idea. So that's why people don't feel comfortable. She's mostly been hiding from questions, from criticism. And when she does come out for her softball interviews and is asked a simple question like, what would you do differently than Joe Biden? She can't really answer it. Nothing comes to mind. So that doesn't send confidence out into the world. So even though Donald Trump is one of the most divisive figures that has been in politics probably ever, especially in the United States, he's so divisive and polarizing to people. Even so, people still prefer to go with the devil they know. And most people, not most people, but a lot of people can at least say, gosh, I don't like him, but things are better. And now I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and vote for him. So it's not about sexism, man. It's not about her being a woman so much. But what really bothers me about these people who are so dead set about the racial issue or the her being a woman issue is that if Tim Scott was running for president, if the Republicans had said, Tim Scott, you are our guy, or they said, Marco Rubio, you are our guy, people will not be like, hey, we need to do this for Latinos. They wouldn't say, "Hey, we need to do this for Black people. We need another person of color to be the president of the United States," if they were running against Joe Biden or just somebody else who white. Like they they would not go that route. They would not push that if the shoe was on the other foot. If Nikki Haley was our woman of color nominee versus Joe Biden, I think she'd be doing really well, honestly. Probably wrapped up the election by now if that was the case. But if it was her versus Joe or just her versus somebody white, I'm not saying she would have won against any candidate they would have brought out or whatever. But you just, if she was against a cis straight white male on the Democrat side or something, all the Democrats who are like, woman this, woman of color this, that, blah, 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 blah. They would not suddenly say, you know what, I'm going to cross over because we need to support a woman of color. And if you don't support this woman of color, then you're sexist and you're racist. They would not do that. They only play this game for their side. And if you are a woman of color, or just a person of color, or a woman even, and you're voting on the other side, then you're voting against your own interest. You're a traitor. You had Michelle Obama who said that women who voted for Trump in 2016 voted against their own voice. That's what Michelle Obama said. So absolutely brain dead and disrespectful to say such a thing. So I just stop with the racist, sexist stuff. It's so insincere. That's the thing I hate about politics the most, is the insincerity of it all. Like just be honest with what you have to say and just say it with your full chest and go from there. And we can debate the issues. We can debate your feelings or whatever, but just be honest about it. Just be honest about it. Don't do this like two-faced garbage. And play these games. That's just what I hate the most about it. Anyway, let's move on. So speaking of games being played, y'all. So 60 Minutes had released some clips of their interview with Kamala Harris in advance. And we had talked about and shared some of those clips. She had a very word salad answer on some stuff. Well, when 60 Minutes actually came out with their video of Kamala Harris, they spliced up some stuff. And people are noting this is really, really sick for them to do this. Some people are like, this is election interference. I don't know. I guess it is their way of kind of interfering, but and doing a solid for her. But here's the example here.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
But
yeah, y'all see how those are two different answers. So there's even the clips that we have seen in advance. There seems to be a lot of cuts on them. So Trump is calling for the whole version of the 60 Minutes interview. Now, I don't know how much of a right he has to ask for that, because he wouldn't even do the 60-minute interview. Now, the reason he won't do the 60-minute interview and he's dodging them, which 60 Minutes was upset, oh, norms, oh, this is whatever. Trump said, y'all need to apologize to me for y'all doing propaganda about the Hunter Biden laptop. Because they try to pretend like Trump was crazy. So he was right about that being Hunter's laptop, wasn't Russian disinformation or whatever. And 60 Minutes tried to push back on him in that interview that they had, and Trump was right. So Trump was like, y'all need to apologize about that. And he sees how biased they are. So he's just like, I'm not playing your games. I'm not going on 60 Minutes. And seeing how they would cut up her answers, people are like, how would they have cut up Trump's answers if he had gone on there, if they're willing to do a style like this for Kamala Harris? Now, the interesting thing about this answer, because again, they played like snippets, like previewing this different stuff that came out. So when it actually like aired, there's this edited answer. The edited answer isn't even a part of the word salad. They didn't take a section of that from that answer that she originally gave and just chop it down. That's an answer from some other question, some other part of the interview. Probably a section when they were probably talking about Ukraine. I don't know, but it's not part of the original answer. So to even chop it up in the way that they did is obviously dishonest. But then to take a section of the answer from somewhere else altogether is absolutely disgraceful and shameful. And they need to be having internal reviews and firing people and apologizing and probably saying to salvage their reputation, they should release the full interview that they had, unscripted, unedited, etc. That's what they should be doing. So it's just a hot mess. And this is one of the things that scares me the most about Kamala Harris winning. And this scared me too about Hillary Clinton. It scared me too about Joe, but I'm really concerned about this because they'll also have the like racial thing that they'll compound on top of all this too, with the media defending her. They don't want to really hold her accountable. People hold Trump accountable all day long. Maybe not always his voters, okay? But but as far as people going out there and doing reporting and doing investigations and him being impeached twice, there's probably a third time in there somewhere if he wins again. If Trump were president during Afghanistan, I have no doubt he would have been impeached for the pullout. If he pulled out the same way that Joe Biden did, if it resulted in the same amount of people dying with our soldiers, if it resulted in that aid worker being droned and those kids, he would have been impeached, and it would have been a successful impeachment because you would have had Democrats, of course, who would have like wanted to get rid of him, and you would have had enough Republican crossover with Romney and other folks like that. You absolutely would have got a successful impeachment if he had blundered the Afghanistan exit in the way that Joe Biden did. But no one was even held accountable in Joe Biden's administration for that awful exit. No one holds these people accountable. No one. The best we can get is the American people saying, we're not going to support you. I'm concerned with what happens if she can win with this really short run time of election, with them having a nominee that they replaced right before the convention. They didn't even bother changing their platform. It still said stuff like as if Joe Biden was going to run a second term. So they replaced them so fast, with all that. And it could have even been someone else, They move very fast on making it Kamala, but it could have been Newsom, it could have been, Shapiro, it could have been other people. So if they reward this process where you have a fake out, a switch out at the very, very end, like, because the Democrats obviously wanted Trump to be the nominee. He had the most baggage to take down. Okay. And then I think they were trying to really push Joe through because Joe really wanted to go to the end and go the distance. So he really shouldn't have ran again, but he did what he did. And they were able to get him out, push him out the last second after a debate, after a presidential debate. Think about how wild this is. Think about if there's another election and a Democrat just does awful and they're like, we need to replace this person at the very last second. Think about what will happen if they get away with this. If they get away with a candidate not doing interviews for 40 freaking days, hiding, lying nonstop about a platform that isn't not even the candidate's platform. Keep going to the Project 2025, making that like the centerpiece of their argument against that person, going and telling lie after lie after lie and not being held accountable. No one holding their feet to the fire, and they still somehow turn out a victory. This would be flipping awful for the country if that happens, if she pulls off this win. And I could talk about other things, about how Tim Walz talked about in a, I think might have been a fundraiser, but it was some kind of event with, I think, with Gavin Newsom, and he mentioned how he wanted to get rid of the Electoral College. That's obviously bad. So that's a norm gone. They want to get rid of the filibuster. They want to reform the Supreme Court, stack the court. They want to change our election laws and how they're done, and give more power to the federal government as far as running those elections and stuff. And Obama mentioned in 2016 when Trump was going around saying like things are rigged. He mocked Trump because he said our system isn't really controlled federally like that. It's broken up state by state by state. That makes it safer. So Obama pointed out our system is safer when it's separate, and Democrats want to make all of these changes. So stuff is so controlled federally. It's just, why so? Because so you can better control the outcomes, and the open borders, how all these people coming in, and then eventually I'm sure they'll want to give them all amnesty and stuff, is going to impact and change our country dramatically. So there's so many ways that they're going to break everything apart. But just even this process of how, if she wins, doing this fast track couple month election, it is going to just reward bad behavior, and other people will try it again. You can say what you want about Trump. I certainly do. But we did have a primary. We had a primary, and it was like Iowa basically decided things, because that's because DeSantis he was the biggest challenger, really, and he put so much into Iowa, and Iowa, it went for Trump before people even could finish caucusing and introducing themselves and explaining why they wanted the candidate that they wanted. So Trump took that, and Ron didn't basically have a good resistance going forward, and Nikki Haley just didn't have enough support, and then she blundered a lot of stuff herself too. So Trump, and after Trump continuously kept getting indicted again and again and again, that's when the base was like, no, we have to support him, because they felt like if we don't support him while they're coming after him, it just looks like we're abandoning him. And it just made people more gung-ho about having his back. Because if you looked at the original kind of polling, people were actually ready and open for someone else other than Trump. But after those indictments happened, it was basically, over. He was the guy. And then there were so many people in the race. If it was a two-man race the whole entire time, maybe it would have been a different story. But we did have a primary. Democrats, they had a primary, as in like there are other people on the ballot, but they didn't really have a primary in the sense that where the DNC was going to entertain anything, in the RNC, for all of the things that they did wrong, because Trump didn't really want them to have a primary either, to be honest, in debates and stuff, but they did, they did. So at least there was a process that ran even counter to what Trump wanted. So even within the party, there was opposition to things that he was pushing. But the whole kind of media and academia and Democrats, all of them are a system working in concert together. And someone's got to break up that monopoly. Someone's got to break it up. So they got to be defeated, and then they got to do better. Unfortunately, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It seems like the moves she's making are just not the moves of someone who's like far ahead. Anyway, another thing that's going on with CBS, we talked about how they edited the video with Kamala Harris on 60 Minutes, which is bad enough. Which is bad enough. But yesterday I went over the scandal with an interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates, who is, a golden boy leftist. He's a black guy who writes about race relations and all kinds of different stuff. He also got into like different media, like was writing comic books and not great comic books and so on as well, but he writes essays and books and so on. So he, spent some time in the Middle East and decided that he was expert enough to write a book on Israel and Gaza and Palestinians, and decided to put all of these perceptions of like America and our racial relations and look into the system of oppressed and oppressor, and basically say Israel is bad guys and Palestinians are the poor baby victims. Didn't include context like Hamas or whatever in the conflict. It was just, to look into the eyes of, the interviewer who pushed back on him said, you treat the Palestinians as though they have no agency and then they're only the victims of Israel. So I played the interview that caused so much trouble, so much drama, and a Jewish journalist pushed back on Ta-Nehisi Coates in his book, which is admittedly one perspective. And so CBS internally was very upset about the interview and, chastised the journalist, and they said this didn't live up to our standards. And some people are like, what do you mean? This was obviously one-sided. In the book's perspective, we're journalists. Shouldn't we try to seek out the truth and inform our audience properly? And it was just a mess. They were going to have a struggle session where they're going to bring in a DEI expert, but then that got scrapped probably because like people were looking at the DEI experts like racist tweets and stuff, but they still did have their struggle session. So I just wanted to read a little bit from a Free Press article. They didn't allow anyone outside of CBS who wasn't there on site to be part of the interview, probably because they wanted to stop leaks from happening, because the other stuff that was going on was leaked. But people still leaked or at least reported different stuff that happened that day in that meeting. So again, this is CBS. So I'm gonna where do I want to start off? The fallout at CBS continues. This is I'm not gonna read, I think, the top of the article because I just basically gave a summary what happened. But the fallout over the sin of DePuckle's questions continued on Tuesday morning during a meeting for the morning staff show. Originally, CBS News had invited a self-described mental health expert, a DEI strategist, and trauma trainer. I guess I already said that. The meeting went ahead without Grant. That was a DI expert. Staffers were not able to join from outside of CBS offices in order to prevent leaks. One source familiar with the proceeding suggested it was a bleep show with various employees yelling. Shauna Thomas, the show's executive producer, was in tears. So was DePuckle. There was an open debate in the meeting about whether it is fair to talk about whether Israel should exist at all. There are some people at CBS who think that Israel's existence as a state should be part of a fair conversation, said one CBS source. Can you imagine journalists having that conversation about any other country? And that's what people talk about when they talk about anti-Semitism. Is not that people have like criticism for Israel, it's legitimate. Like people talk about, people shilling for Israel and stuff like Ben Shapiro or something, but Ben Shapiro will talk about Israel and things that are wrong in their country and things that they need to do better. Like he literally has had shows about it and gave speeches on it and so on. But when people have particular criticisms for Israel that they would not have for other nations, people start to ask why. So, yeah, so they say, can you imagine journalists having that conversation about any other country? No wonder why Shari Redstone, the controlling shareholder of CBS's parent company, Paramount Global, at least until its merger with Skydance goes through sometime next year, is not happy. A source close to Redstone told the Free Press that Redstone thought that Tony gave a great interview and modeled what civil discourse should look like, and she disagreed with the action the company took. She's working with the CEOs to address this issue. Meanwhile, Coates himself spoke about the controversy for the first time Tuesday in a trailer for an appearance on Trevor Noah's podcast. He accused DeCulpel of commandeering the interview. I don't think he did Nate and Gail a service, and I'm really, really sorry for them, said Coates, referring to his co-hosts Gail King and Nate Burleson. But Coates also revealed a detail that caught our eye. As he was praising King as a great journalist and a great interviewer, he said that Gail came behind the stage before we went on and she had gone through the book. And I'm not saying she agreed with the book. She was like, I'm going to ask you about this. I'm going to ask you about that. So let's get this straight. One journalist is raked over the coals for asking tough questions, while another journalist, if Coates's recollection is correct, previews her questions and faces no repercussions. King did not respond to requests for comment, which poses a few questions. Chief among them, are there different rules for different journalists at CBS? So, that's interesting. Now, he did like take the whole entire interview. Basically, there was one fluff question, and then it was like the grilling, and the Gail was like, I think Gail got in a question, but it was, he's like 20 seconds left, basically, when she got to ask her questions. So it was, a debate about him having to defend his one-sided worldview, which he's inaccurate, and his opinions are silly, but I thought he still like did well in his interview, even though he's wrong and I disagree with him. So all of this drama from CBS is just insane to me. A former CBS journalist told the Free Press that if she is showing him specific lines of questioning in advance, that would violate journalistic standards. Now, are they going to investigate her and say that what she did was not keeping with CBS's standards? I suspect not. One last thing, let's just say we have a pattern recognition around stories like these. So when two sources at CBS told the Free Press that this whole dust up involved the network's race and culture unit, we weren't shocked. According to the company's website, this unit works in concert with the CBS News Standards and Ethics Department to ensure all stories have the proper context, tone, and intention. It was formed in the summer of 2020. We must always be aware of how race and culture impacts our journalism, and in terms of the future CBS News, this unit will be as important as standards and practices, a CBS executive said all the time. So it's probably like a DEI sort of section of CBS. These boards and subjective criteria have made them a very powerful voice, and many employees believe this has allowed greater bias to creep into editorial decisions at the network, said one CBS News source to the Free Press. You see bias when it's something you don't agree with. Yeah, so that's the end of that article. Ooh. It's insane. Now, some people pointed out Gail had interviewed a father whose child was kidnapped and started to kind of ask. Like, he didn't like grill her, but he was asking questions, about politics or whatever. He's just like, I don't care about politics. I just want my child back. And so it wasn't like grilling on the level that like was going on in the Coates interview, but Coates is a journalist who was making a political book and stuff, so his pushback was warranted. But I remember when this interview came out, people were talking about it, and they felt that these kind of questions to these family members were inappropriate.
But now this seems to be all about politics. What do you say about that? You have innocent children in Palestinians who are dying, innocent Israeli children who are dying. And no one seems to be able to say enough, stop that.
I'm not interested in politics at all. My only concern is getting Emily back.
So that was the silly question, and I laughed because it is silly. It's like no one is saying just stop that, just stop that. Like it's such a fantasy world. It's such a fantasy world, as if we're not talking about real human beings who have like different wants and desires and needs, and like real evil doesn't exist, as if we're all playing like make believe in a Barbie dream house where you can just someone come in and just lecture and wave their finger like, you guys stop that, you behave, and just people just lay down their Barbies and decide to be cool all of a sudden. That's not the real world that we're living in. And people always like, ceasefire, why can't we just stop? Because one side wants to really kill the other. One side really wants to kill the other, and one side doesn't want to die. It's that freaking simple. So what are the options? Just be like, okay, sure, yeah, you can totally kill us next time. Just people's commentary and reporting during the past year over the Israel stuff is just been so stupid, so insane. On top of like wrong in a lot of instances and just blatant misinformation, but it's interesting. Again, CBS, they have a bias. They were chastising the reporter for coming at Ta-Nehisi Coates and making him defend his book that he wrote, and coming like as if he did something wrong. But I'm not hearing, and maybe it's happening and we're just not hearing about it. Maybe there aren't leaks. What about them cutting up the 60-minute interview? What about how they treated JD Vance at the debate? Where's the blowback for that? Because there should be blowback for that. How they've been acting past few weeks is just an utter embarrassment. And people rag on CNN all the time. People rag on MSNBC and their bias and stuff. Maybe we don't talk about CBS enough. At least, when something pops up, the viral, I commentate on it or whatever. But I didn't really, I don't know, I guess pay them a lot of mind about how bad they were in these different instances. But I guess it's getting worse for everybody. But this is the kind of nonsense that's got to stop. It's got to stop. Anyway, I think that's where I'm going to table it today. We are pretty much just a smidgen over today in our hour. So I covered the topics I wanted to cover. So we're going to call a close. There's something else that I had on my mind, but I'll just save it for tomorrow. I'll save it for tomorrow. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost to stream and run my site, all that good stuff. So if you guys can support, I appreciate it. Thank you to all of you in the chat. I see people in the chat on Facebook today, like Craig's in the chat, Tina's in the chat, R. Smith was in the chat, April's in the chat. Thank you guys so much for Antoine's in the chat. Oh, that's my boy. Mr. Davenport's in the chat. I didn't even notice. Hey, thanks for watching. Dawn. Some of you guys can't see each other because you're on different platforms, but I see you. I see you guys. Thank you for watching live. Thank you to those who watch back. I know people, some people don't comment later. Some people leave comments when they watch it back. Thank you to everyone for liking and chatting, and all that helps more people discover the live and so on. So thank you guys. Check out some of my articles on this website. I'm going to drop some more soon. I'm going to write some op-eds and see if I can get any published in some major press. And if I do and I'm successful, I'll let you guys know. But I just I've got some many things to say about Kamala Harris. I'm gonna have some pretty big videos that I'll be working on and trying to get out and stuff too. So, I'll keep you up to date with that and encourage you guys to share when I post those sorts of things too. And I gotta make it fast because there's not that many days left for this election. So, thank you guys. Go check out different merch on the website as well. Again, November the 3rd, I will be in Ann Arbor for a book signing, and on the 8th, 9th, and 10th, I will be at Motor City Comic Con. And if there's anything else going on, I will let you guys know because I am kind of thinking of um putting out something else as well if I can. I know people are getting really busy at the end of the year. One thing that's really sweet, I my mom, you guys know, just passed away, and my sister was going through her wallet and she found a receipt, and it was of like Burlington Coat Factory, and they have a layaway, and so she had some clothes on layaway for her grandchildren. And my mom, she shops, or she did shop the entire year, to make sure that we had, stuff for Christmas. I know she already had stuff for me and most of my siblings. And so and she had gift cards and other stuff, I guess, to continue shopping and stuff. But my sister Angelina, she's the only one of us who has kids right now, but she's 5. And she always goes on about like, mom would do so much stuff, mom would buy so much stuff. And like Chris, like we get on the phone like, mom, I need this, I need that. And she's like, well, don't worry about the clothes, because I'm getting this and I'm getting that. So my sister found, her layaway ticket, and so she went and she called them to see if they had put the stuff back yet, and they hadn't. So she was able to go to Burlington and she paid the rest on it. And so I went over the house yesterday, and there's just a bag of clothes for the kids. And so, shout out to my mom. And I know she's gone, but again, she was just such a thoughtful person, and did her best to make sure that the holidays were good for all of us. And it's I didn't expect to go out crying, y'all. It's just really hard thinking about. I mean, it's really nice that that there'll be things under the tree from her for Christmas, but next year there won't be. I don't know how we're gonna get through Thanksgiving either, man, because we didn't really sit down and write how she did everything. Like, we have some ideas, but we're like, oh gosh, my mom made everything on Thanksgiving. Like some of us know how to make a turkey and ham and whatnot, but and know how to make sweet potato pie, but nobody could nail it quite like her. So, and that was my dad's favorite holiday and Sabrina's favorite holiday. So we just we gotta figure it out. But it's hard thinking about how you're gonna mourn someone for the rest of your life. So, but yeah, I just Missouri. Thank you guys for all your kind words and your thoughts and your prayers, and it means a lot. It really means a lot. It ticks me off when people say that, try to act like thoughts and prayers don't mean anything. Even if I haven't liked every comment or responded. I didn't respond to a lot of people. I just didn't have a lot of emotional bandwidth. But I read so many, and I just thank you guys so much. But oh gosh, Katrina said, "Oh, I'm gonna give you a hug." Oof. Anyway, thank you guys again, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless you guys.